February 1959. 9 young hikers set off into the frozen Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union. They were experienced, well-prepared, and determined to conquer the icy slopes of a remote peak known as Dead Mountain. But they never returned. When rescuers finally found their campsite weeks later, what they discovered was beyond explanation. A torn tent, ripped open from the inside, belongings left behind, and bodies scattered across the snow. Some half-dressed, some with injuries too strange to believe. What happened on that mountain? Why did 9 hikers meet such a mysterious and violent end? This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident, one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. The group was led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student. Alongside him were 8 fellow students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute. Bright, adventurous, and skilled in survival. Their plan was to complete a 300-kilometer ski trek through one of the harshest regions of the Soviet Union. For them, it was more than just a journey. It was a test of endurance, one that would earn them the highest certification in hiking. On January 27th, they began their expedition. Spirits were high. They took photographs, wrote journals, and documented their progress. But as the days went on, the weather worsened. Snowstorms battered the mountains. Visibility dropped. And soon, the group was forced off their planned route. On February 1st, they pitched their tent on the slopes of Kolatsiakol, translated ominously as Dead Mountain. That night would be their last. When the hikers failed to return as scheduled, search parties were dispatched. Weeks later, the rescuers came upon a strange sight. The group's tent, half buried in snow, was abandoned. But what shocked investigators was that the fabric was cut open from the inside, as if the hikers had slashed their way out in a desperate attempt to escape. Scattered footprints led down the slope, barefoot or in socks, despite the freezing temperatures. Following the tracks, searchers found the first bodies at the edge of the forest, lying near the remains of a small fire. They were wearing little clothing, as if they had fled the tent in a panic. More bodies were discovered over the following weeks, hidden beneath snow and ice. But the conditions of some of the victims raised chilling questions. Several had broken ribs and fractured skulls, injuries similar to a car crash. One hiker was missing her eyes, another, her tongue. Yet there were no external wounds on the bodies, as if the force had come from within. The scene didn't make sense. How could experienced hikers suddenly flee into the night, underdressed, and suffer such violent injuries? Over the decades, countless theories have tried to explain the Dyatlov Pass mystery. The avalanche theory. The most accepted explanation is that an avalanche struck the camp. Panicked, the hikers cut their way out of the tent and fled downhill. Some froze to death, while others were fatally injured by snow and debris. But critics point out that no significant evidence of an avalanche was ever found. The slope was not steep enough, and the tent was still visible above the snow. Military testing. Some believe the group stumbled into secret Soviet weapons tests. Bright orbs of light were reported in the sky that night. Could they have been parachute mines or rockets? The bizarre injuries, like massive internal trauma without external wounds, fit the effects of shockwaves from explosions. But no official records confirm such tests in the area. Infrasound panic. Another theory suggests natural winds produced a rare phenomenon called the Kármán vortex street. Low-frequency sound waves could have triggered irrational fear, driving the hikers into sudden panic. Disoriented, they fled the tent, only to succumb to the cold. But while intriguing, this theory struggles to explain the severe physical injuries. Paranormal or extraterrestrial theories. Others look beyond science. UFO sightings in the region, strange lights in the sky, and the bizarre state of the bodies have fueled speculation of alien encounters. Some whisper about Yeti attacks or supernatural forces tied to the mountain itself. While these explanations capture the imagination, they remain impossible to prove. Internal conflict. A darker possibility is that tensions within the group boiled over. In the chaos of a fight or accident, the hikers turned on each other. But the evidence doesn't quite fit. The hikers were close friends. Their injuries seemed far too severe for a simple altercation. Even today, more than 60 years later, the Dyatlov Pass Incident refuses to give up its secrets. Why was the tent ripped open from the inside? Why did they leave so suddenly without shoes or coats? How did they suffer such catastrophic injuries with no visible wounds? And what about the missing eyes? And the missing tongue? Every theory answers some questions, but none explain it all. Perhaps the Dyatlov Pass Incident endures because it captures our deepest fears. The idea of being trapped in an unforgiving wilderness. The thought of facing something unknown, unstoppable, and unseen. It also reflects the limits of human understanding. In an age of technology and science, here is a mystery that resists explanation. A story where every answer only leads to more questions. 9 hikers went into the mountains. 9 never came back. Their final hours remain a puzzle locked in ice and snow. And maybe that's why the Dyatlov Pass Incident still haunts us today. Because sometimes the scariest mysteries are the ones we may never solve.